on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is a part solo hot tent adventure on top of a mountain. It is very cloudy. It is extremely windy up here. Unfortunately, the only location that I could find that was large enough to pitch this tent, because the forest up here is so thick, is in an open field. So I've taken a lot of time to make sure the tent is secured to the ground with multiple pegs and guy lines. Got the guy lines on the pipe and everything looks like it is secure. I did forget one thing. That was my fireproof mat, so I don't burn the ground sheet. I've taken care of that by lined a whole bunch of stones on top of the mat, as well as on the stove legs to really anchor the stove down, because I imagine these winds are going to pick up later on this evening. So everything is set up right now. It is time to grab the saw, go collect some wood, and get this fire going. All right guys, I've got the wood stove prepped and ready to go for fire, but I am not going to light it just yet. I just finished doing feather sticks, and while I was doing that, a massive gust of wind just came in and actually inverted that side of the tent. And what I mean by that is basically the poles are up, the wind blew so hard that it popped them inwards, which brought the whole tent in right on the pipe and the side of the stove, and then it popped back out. So I do have some reflective guy out material cordage in my bag. I've got a couple extra tent pegs. I'm gonna make guy lines for this tent which hook onto the poles outside and guy out the tent fully. That way everything will be absolutely secure before I light the stove, because I do not want that to invert itself where it is very, very windy. There is no bottom skirt on this tent either, so I'm trying to minimize how much wind can come in by keeping that side shut, because the wind's coming in from this side. But ultimately, wind is getting underneath, which is no problem for tonight because I've got a winter rated bag and pad, so I'm not worried about being warm. And I'm gonna let this go out like I always do, because I'm gonna rely on my sleep system for warmth and not the wood stove. This is purely just for fun, for cooking, for a little bit of ambience, just to enjoy it. So I've got to get to work guying out those, and then it's going to be time to light the wood stove. All right guys, I've got the tent secured and guyed out fully now. All four fluorescent glow-in-the-dark guy lines are into the ground. I've got 2 on this side into trees and the 2 on that side in the ground. Totally secure now. Now I actually feel comfortable enough to light the wood stove, because having a tent that gets inverted or the walls blow in really, really hard is not something you want to do with a wood stove inside your tent. So I've got enough kindling here. I've got a mix between hardwood, softwood, spruce, pine. I've got a little bit of maple here, birch. I had to go all over the place, and finding wood was not easy. This forest out here is super, super thick with vegetation. Pushing my way through to find a tree was a challenge, but I've got all the wood stacked behind me. Now, effectively, what I wanted to do was use that entryway to come in and out of the tent. Use this side as a vestibule just for wood storage. With the wind blowing in from this side, I'm actually afraid to open that door with the stove burning. I don't think it's gonna go very well. It'll probably end up blowing my pad and bag right into the stove. So what I'm gonna do is use this side as an entry in and out. There's loads of room here for me to get in and out, which I was kind of worried about, but actually seeing it like this, there's loads of room. I've got the large panel shut and the short panel open because this tent has 2 different sized doors. So this is actually working really, really well. I can get in here and work no problem. So let's fire this up, and I am hungry and thirsty. I want a coffee, and I want it 10 minutes ago. So let's get going with this. I've got my fire steel. I've got a little fire starter cube from like the hardware store. Just gonna throw some sparks in this little pile that I made and get it ignited. Make sure our damper's open, draft is open. Let's spark this up. All right, everybody, supper time is totally done. We had a little bit of a sunset, the tiniest little bit of sunset, pink and purple up in the sky just behind the tent, which was very, very, very quick and short-lived. It passed through. The winds are very high up here still, pushing the clouds right across the sky. So Boomer, I think Boomer's done for the day. He's basically tuckered out. I'm gonna get his jacket off of him soon because it is a little bit damp. Get it hung up on one of these loops. It'll be nice and dry come morning time. And that's basically all he's gonna be doing for the night, I think, is once he gets inside of a tent with a wood stove, this is what he does. He'll probably curl right up next to the stove later on this evening, and he won't move for the rest of the night until the fire goes out, and then he'll crawl right down to the foot end or the midway down through my sleeping bag and basically fall asleep. So I've got everything inside of the tent now. I've got my backpack, all my gear towards the foot end. I've got ample amount of room right here. I'm not at any risk of rolling into the stove or anything like that. And it's looking pretty comfortable in here. So the outside temperature right now is plus 7 degrees Celsius. The last time I checked. Inside, moments ago, it was plus 15 degrees Celsius with this door wide open. So the front door is still wide open and the bottom of the skirt is totally open, and I just loaded a piece of wood in there. So it was dying down. I'm gonna guess that later on tonight's probably gonna get up to about 25 degrees Celsius in here. That's a small stove. It's not a very large tent, and that thing throws a ton of heat. So I think it's gonna be long sleeve shirt, get this hoodie off a little later on, and probably lounge on top of the sleeping pad out of the sleeping bag, watch a movie that I have saved on my phone, and kind of decompress a little bit, watch the fire for a while, and probably just fall asleep to that, to be honest, guys. But right now I'm gonna finish tidying up inside and outside of the tent. I want to have everything squared away, ready for morning time. That way when I wake up, I can lean over, spark the stove up, put some water on there, and make a hot cup of coffee. So almost relaxed time. All right, guys, coming inside of the tent now. It is actually just starting to spit with rain. So who knows, if it gets cold enough, maybe it'll turn into slush, maybe it'll turn into hail. I have no idea, but it is definitely warm inside of this tent right now. So this sweater is coming off for sure, really quick. Get this off, get comfortable. The door's still wide open. I'm trying to let some of the heat out. And hopefully it'll get a little bit more comfortable inside of here quickly. I do have a little bit more hot coffee left, so I just heated this up on the wood stove there, and it also is a little too hot right now, so let that cool down. Now what I've done with these stones, putting them on the ground just so I don't burn the ground sheet, I've actually made kind of like a little hearth so I can set things on top and it'll still get heat from the side of the stove to keep it warm, as well as dry out some of the wet wood that I've collected, because some of that birch that I collected, just trying to get up here, some of this birch that I collected earlier on is soaking wet and it's got quite a bit of weight to it. So I'm going to set this on the hearth area a little later on this evening and cycle in a piece at a time, have it dry out, and then come later on in the morning or later on this evening, I'll be able to burn that. I've got all my kindling and small stuff ready to go for the morning so I can light the fire without going outside and doing prep, which is a bonus of having a tent with no floor, by the way. The vestibule area, I can baton and kind of work with wood out there without damaging the floor cloth. I've got all kinds of hardwood and softwood, a good mix of fuel for the wood stove. And I think it's going to be very, very nice and relaxing in here this evening. So, like I said, it is a little warm in here right now. I'm gonna let the door stay open for a little while, get some of that out. And if you guys listen really carefully, might be able to hear the tapping the rain on the tent. It's being blown in by the wind. It's kind of just trickling on the tent right now. So the wind's going this way, so I can leave the door open. Nothing's coming in as far as rain, and it's such late rain right now, I'm not worried about it. But that is basically going to be it for outside. I'm gonna get comfortable inside, and I'll catch up with you guys in just a moment. All right, guys, I am definitely getting relaxed right now. The heat inside of here has reached a very, very comfortable level. I just shut the front door, loaded in a damp piece of wood, and damped the stove down. So that's gonna smolder and burn a little bit slower. There's a lot of light coming out of the stove too, so there is still quite a bit of flame from the other piece of wood in there. So I think what I'm gonna do is probably shut this overhead lamp off and enjoy some of this flickering flame light from the wood stove. I got 2 glass windows on there, so it really helps to illuminate the tent and make a really, really interesting atmosphere. So I do have my hot drink still kicking around right here. I'm gonna sip on that and basically call it a night as far as camera goes. So Boomer's down here on my wool sweater. He's gonna lounge there for a little bit, giving me a little bit of room to move around. And then later on, I'll jump over and give him a little bit of room to come back up on the sleeping pad inside the sleeping bag. And then it's gonna be good night. So I'm gonna say goodnight to you guys now, and I will catch up with you guys first thing in the morning for coffee. Good night, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful, silent, crisp, but not too cold of a morning this morning. So last night it rained off and on, quite heavy actually. It picked up for one point for probably about a half hour where it was really raining. The wind did not let up. It was windy all night as well, but everything held together, no problem. Super warm inside that tent. I was out of my hoodie, in my long sleeve shirt, had the sleeping bag unzipped down to about my chest area, and I was warm all night long. Boomer actually slept outside of the sleeping bag. He's just kind of wandering around right now. He slept outside the sleeping bag with my wool hoodie, and he was warm all night without his jacket. He had his hoodie on, and the wood stove was crackling for quite a while. I put 2 really dense rounds of maple inside the wood stove when we went to bed. I think we went to sleep at about 11 o'clock, and I remember waking up at about 4 a.m. and it was still red hot coals in there, and it was still warm inside the tent. So very, very surprising with that. And that is how we go hot tenting. Have some fun and stay nice and warm. So Boomer and I up on this mountaintop this morning, super calm. Like, just listen to this. Super calm this morning. Now, one interesting thing is when I was laying inside the tent this morning, I can actually hear running water. Behind the camera, we're up on a ridge right now, and behind the camera there's another ridge. There's a really deep valley. There's a running river down there, which is pretty awesome. I may come back here at some point in time and venture down that valley, maybe do a hammock hang or something, because there's definitely running water down there, and it sounds like there's a waterfall. So that would be pretty fun. But this morning it is cloudy. Like I said, it's crisp, it's cool. It's just my kind of vibe, my kind of, early winter morning. And Boomer's loving it too. Boomer got to see his first little bit of snow just last trip. He didn't know what to think it was. And this trip there's a little bit of spotty snow in the trees, so he's kind of having fun with that. And he's having a great time. So we're gonna chill out, enjoy some breakfast, some morning coffee, and have some fun. And then we're gonna make our way back over towards the tent, get that fire put out, and start the pack up process. So cheers, guys. Morning coffee up on a mountaintop. All right, so I've got everything unloaded out of the tent except for my sleeping bag, and got to keep my head on a swivel right now. So I should probably mention that on my way in here yesterday and venturing around here also yesterday and the evening last night, I noticed large amounts of moose droppings. And honestly, I wasn't terribly worried about it. I get asked this often, what do I do about bears and things of that nature? And to be honest, I don't really worry about bears, but moose on the other hand, I worry about. They're big, and when they want to move, they can move. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is not very far from me right now, I can hear some crashing and thrashing through the trees. So Boomer's ears are up working like a little antenna. I think it's behind me, so I do believe it may be a moose. So head on a swivel, I'm going to continuously look around and make sure he doesn't just wander into this field, which is loaded full of moose droppings, which I bet he will at some point. But hopefully we'll be out of here by then and he won't bother us. So I'm just going to continue packing up, head on a swivel, always eyes and ears open, making sure what's going on in the immediate area. And good thing having a dog too, because they can hear things and smell things as well. So yeah, just a little bit of information. Bears, not really a big problem. Moose, definitely a problem, me personally. So I'm going to wrap all this up. I'll catch up with you guys in just one moment. Alright guys, I've got everything packed up inside of the bag, wool hoodie on, and we're ready to hit the trail. So I did stash that firewood in the forest, so next time I come back, hopefully it's there and it's not soaking wet. And we're basically ready to get on the trail and start hiking out of here. Boomer's rearing to go. He is ready to go home, go see Mama, and so am I. So I thank you guys very much for joining me. Any questions or comments, drop them down below in the comment section. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, everybody.